Hi, everyone. Welcome into Life and Law with Debora Diaz. I'm Barbara Marville. It's great to be with you. Debora, we're back again. Our fourth show, and we've been receiving a lot of questions. Today, we have a very touchy, sort of a fragile subject that we're going to be talking about. But if you're brand new watching the show, we want to welcome you in. I just want to let you know that Debora comes with a little bit of experience, like 22 years in family law, and is also a counselor, which is really important for you to know because of the subject matter that we go through during the shows. It's important to know that she really does care about you. And the other thing is that she's very, very compassionate about her clients and very courageous. And the other thing is she's available. So you don't ever have to be concerned about getting a hold of her when you're going through some of the tough times. But today we're going to be talking about something that we all go through, and that's losing a loved one, a spouse, a partner. And Debora's going to address many of the feelings that we go through, the grief process, and we're going to answer a lot of questions that have actually come through on many different subjects that will affect each and every one of us. So Debora, let's get started and really jump in there. It really is a touchy subject, isn't it?
The loss of a spouse or partner is right up there on the stress scale. And many people will have to go through this eventually or at some point, and some unexpectedly, and some in long-term relationships or short-term relationships. But the loss of your spouse, partner, is devastating. And I want to step back a little bit because you said counselor. I don't want any misconceptions. I joke because we say attorney and counselor at law. Counseling within the framework of the legal areas.
And thank you for clarifying that.
Counselor.
I understand.
Psychology,
I
so
understand.
I want to make sure. But we do counsel our clients, and we are. It's good to have some psychology background. Because we are counseling too, in effect, of when we're listening to our clients come to us with these with the issues.
And these issues can be really kind of touchy when you stop to think about it. So having that counseling in law is critical. And so some of the questions that we've had, we're going to go over, and I don't know if we're going to be able to cover all of them today, but we're going to really tackle as much as we possibly can. Of course, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to call in. Our producer extraordinaire, Dylan, can pass those on to us. And also, Debora has her own Gmail. So that's Debora.
Life and Law with Debora at gmail.com.
So you can email Debora even after the show or during the show, and anything that we don't cover this week, we'll cover next week because
we'll try.
We'll try. Weekly show. Yeah, we'll do. You really do. Give it your best. So
one of the first things I wanted to say as we talk about the loss of a spouse, it's very important to take care of yourself and recognize that. It's very important to understand that it's a loss, and that there's going to be many, many different feelings. There's different stages, and there's many good books out there on that. I'm not replacing any of that. I'm just going to talk about some. You lose your partner, you feel that great loss, that emptiness. You might feel anger that you're the one who's left behind. You may feel guilty because maybe you didn't do enough, or maybe you didn't say enough. You run all these scenarios through your mind of, guilt for the one that's still surviving. Excuse me. There's fear. You were part of a couple. There's two, and then there's the fear of being single again.
Right.
Okay, single. So related to that, there's an identity crisis. Who are you? Who are you left behind? And so you have to deal with that. Like, what are you going to do? Your friends change, always change. Death always changes the dynamics in families and in friends and relationships. For example, if you had things that you did with couples every Saturday night, husband and wife, or your partner, and the partner dies, there's an awkwardness. Sometimes the social group is not so welcoming to the single person left behind back into that group. Not everyone. I'm just saying sometimes that can
I've heard
occur,
that.
so that you're, people can feel threatened with the single woman left behind. Since there's more single women than there are men, there's such an abundance so that women can feel threatened when there's a single woman going into this
Social
group,
group.
into the social group. I'm not making a general that it always happens, but it's part of that. It's easy to get sick during this time of the loss because you're not concentrating on yourself. So again, it comes back to taking care of yourself. Excuse me. It's important to really to try to have your support network in place to talk about it. It's important. People have to mourn. There is a process. It is a grieving process. You have to feel. You have to cry.
Sure.
You have to let the emotions
Sure.
Go through. It's part of the process. Although it's unpleasant, it's part of the process. You have to feel in order to recover, in order to move on.
Right.
Okay?
It's going through that process.
Yes. It's also cautious to not overindulge in alcohol or drugs during this time. It's very easy to drown your sorrows, drown your sadness in either drinking too much or trying to take drugs. Now they have their place. Sometimes people may need something, but it's not necessarily the answer because you do have to feel the pain in order to recover. And remember that pain is related to pleasure. This is my view, that if you weren't so happy, you wouldn't feel the pain upon losing someone.
Exactly.
So that it goes hand in hand.
And that makes a lot of sense. It really does. And it doesn't matter whether you've been with a partner for just a few years or a lot of years. And it doesn't matter whether you are expecting it. You get bad news and your partner may not have very much time. And even though you may be expecting it, it's a shock.
Yes.
No matter how you look at it.
I think if the literature and that, I've read a lot on this. As you know, I lost my husband.
Yes.
10 years in November of this year.
Yes.
And that memory of the person never goes away. It's okay though, and sometimes you feel guilty. It's okay to be happy. You recover from the death, and you can be happy, but you still feel the loss. Okay, I feel the loss every day.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that I haven't gone on with my life and to be happy.
Right.
So that's what people have to recognize.
And that's really good inspiration for our viewers, that there is hope for a better tomorrow when you have gone through that loss. I have an experience that I've been with friends who have, and I can relate to everything you're saying thus far. So the first thing that you said coming right out of the gate with the show was take care of yourself. And that is really good advice. Because what happens is as we become caregivers, we can end up becoming the patient. And then that just, pushes us down, and it's so much harder to take.
And one of the hardest times is, when the death is new, there's a lot of friends reaching out, and there's, you have that. But when it's 2 and 3 months away, is when really the loneliness more sets in. It's that quiet time when all the friends aren't there, family may have gone away, and you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you can't sleep. And and I tell people, when I don't know what someone else is experiencing when they lose a partner, but I can tell them I know somewhat what they're feeling. So try to, so even though you don't know what people are going through, reach out. If someone's had a loss, reach out. It's okay sometimes just to say, hello, I'm thinking of you.
Yes.
That's it. That's all you need.
It can make or break a day for somebody.
And there's a lot of good support groups out there. There's online support groups. There's really good books to read. It's also, I wrote my husband a letter. I wrote him actually several letters of what I was thinking as I was going through the process. So, put your thoughts down.
And that helped you?
And it helped. It helped me to say,
That's
things.
really good advice. That's really good advice, because you're expressing yourself, and there's it seems like that would be sort of a release.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Which
is. It
brings
is.
a little
Yeah.
relief too.
It does.
Good. Well, that's good.
So,
We have just about a minute before we take our break, but we have gotten really a lot of questions, and that we're going to start talking about those when we come back. Anything else that you can talk about in this last few seconds before we go to break?
I think it just emphasized to take care of yourself. That really is to take care of yourself. There are really some good support groups out there, and don't over-medicate. And I think that it really is important to feel the grief. Feeling the grief is part of the recovery process.
Exactly.
Okay, not masking it.
Right.
Okay, if people take medicine, and then if they just mask it for a year afterwards, they
Yes.
haven't mourned.
Right.
You have to mourn
Right.
the loss
Right.
of your spouse.
And I went through something with my mom. When I lost my mom, I thought I was doing okay. It was a year and a half later where I started having tummy issues from that. On that note, we're going to take a brief little
Thank
time
you.
out. So our takeaway in this first segment is take care of yourself no matter what. We'll be right back.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Hi, everyone. Welcome into Life and Law with Debora Diaz. I'm Barbara Marville. Thanks for joining us. We've been talking about a very touchy subject, and that is about losing a spouse or a partner. And we've been talking about the grieving process and some of the things that you can expect, and it's okay to go through that grieving process. Well, since we've been promoting the show about this touchy subject, a lot of questions have come in that we're going to do the best we can to address as many as we possibly can, because at some time or another, these things are what happens in real life. We lose a spouse or a loved one. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Debora. The questions, I mean, we are inundated with questions that can affect you. So some of the things that we can talk about are basically preparation. I mean, there's certain things that we can prepare for the death of a spouse, but then there's some things we can't, because tomorrow's never promised, right?
Exactly.
So some of the documentation, some of the different legal things that we can prepare, what are some of those little tips that you can share with our audience?
Well, you need to talk about your estate planning.
Okay.
You should look at having a will, having a durable power of attorney. Now, a last will and testament is what is going to give your estate. Okay, so that's a legal document that deals with your estate. I don't want to go too quickly. Durable power of attorney is someone that you're giving someone the power to act over you if you become incapacitated. So this is before that. This is incapacity. You're still living, and you can do a power of attorney to give someone the power to act as if they can act. That can be very broad, so that they can do anything that you could do, or it can be limited for certain, just certain transactions. You can talk about having a healthcare surrogate. This is important. You want to have that so that if you're incapacitated in the hospital, someone else can talk to the doctors and the nurses. Okay, it's really vitally important to have an advocate for you in the hospital.
Yes,
okay?
definitely.
So you want someone else to be able to talk to the doctors, to be able to look at records and demand to look at records, because you can look at your medical records and know what's going on.
Of course.
And then a living will, it's really an advance directive. It's what it's called. You're saying in advance how you want, if death is imminent, what do you want in the end? Do you want every measure to be used to keep you going, or do you just want food and nutrition and things? So you're really dealing with, that's when death is imminent. How do you want to be treated at that end stage, that end of the life? And this is what, when your death is going to be very soon.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Let's say you have a son and a daughter, 3 sons. How do we do that? How do we bring in that power of attorney that we feel confident? I know that's a loaded question.
The power of attorney should be usually, husband and wife, they'll name each other, and then they'll name an alternate, such as someone. But it has to be, it does not have to be the oldest child.
Okay.
A lot of people say,
was my next
I've got to, they don't want to hurt someone's feeling.
Right,
no,
right.
As I'm counseling and talking to clients, it's someone that they trust that will carry out their wishes. Not the person's that's been named wishes, but what you want.
Yes.
So when you're naming, you want your power of attorney to be following your wishes, and your healthcare surrogate to be doing, what you would want to do.
Okay. That makes sense. So,
and that might not always be the oldest child.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It could be a friend. Could be your best friend.
Sure.
You can name whoever it is that you want.
Okay.
To be your POA.
Right.
And it does not have to be a relative.
Okay. And that's good to know, because some people don't have children.
A lot of, and we see that, of course, in Florida a lot, where you don't have children and they're older and they're naming friends. But it should be someone, especially with the POA, because power of attorney is a very, very powerful document. We'll talk about more, I'm sure, in this show or later shows, but very powerful document that you definitely want to trust who it is, and that you don't necessarily going to hand that document to them when you execute it. It only when it's needed, because it has effect when executed. When signed in the formalities, So it's a very powerful document that you're naming someone to do anything that you can do.
And do they need to be present with all this when
They
you
don't,
do that?
they're not, no, the client is the one who makes the
Okay.
decisions. And then if I'm naming you POA, you don't have to be there. But I might tell you, Barbara, I've named you POA. You can find that document here, in a certain place if you ever need it.
Do you ever
thing.
find where somebody might not want to take that position? I'm just curious.
Oh, we do have that, excuse me, have that discussion where you want to make sure that the POA wants that position.
Right.
Many times. I just had a case that several weeks ago where there's, the mother had named brother and sister, brother first, and the brother didn't want to have anything to do with it. Now, it would have been nice if he would have said that ahead of time. Apparently, the mother thought he wanted it or whatever, but
Sure,
didn't
sure.
want to. And so then we have to look, hopefully, if she had named someone that could be the POA. Sometimes people don't do that.
Right.
They don't have
Sometimes
an
people don't
alternate.
want that responsibility.
Right.
No
Exactly.
hard feelings or anything, but
Well,
that's a
because
big
part of the responsibility. Let's say it's your mother, and your mother falls, and she's in the hospital. She's had surgery. Let's say hip replacement. That's a common thing. Okay.
Yeah.
She's under anesthesia. She has a little dementia because of the anesthesia. Let's say, and so now someone's got to deal with where's she going for rehab. Who's going to research the rehabs? Who's going to deal with the people, and they want to get paid? Who's going to do all the insurance stuff? And so it's all that. So it can be a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly. It really can. So, hopefully this information is coming out to you in a good way, and you can make some notes on it. And again, you can always get a hold of Debora through her email, her Gmail account, and you can also call the show. We're here live and unrehearsed every Thursday at 4:30 Eastern Time. So my goodness, all these questions. Where should we go next? You have the same
guess-
copy. Let's see. Where? Just pick one. Okay. What if a person doesn't have a will when they die? Where do they go after? What happens?
If someone dies without a will, the state of Florida has actually written a statute. We have a statute that's
Okay.
going to follow a hierarchy. So if it's husband and wife and we have a surviving spouse, then the spouse is going to be next in line to inherit. And then there's going to be, if there's no spouse, then it's going to look to children. No children, we're going to look to siblings and or parents. So there's a hierarchy in the statute
I see.
that if there's no will, you're going to look and go down the line of that. People say this, they don't, about a will. You know how many people, famous people, have died without a will? I
can imagine.
One of the most is Bob Marley died without a will. Okay, and so there was litigation for years afterwards about his estate and the recordings and everything.
I can imagine.
And here's someone you think that they should.
Right, right.
Die. Should know that you should be doing estate planning.
Yes, exactly. And I would think that gives a person better peace of mind when they do while they are still living.
It's, you have a will, and you're laying out your wishes of how you want your property and possessions to be taken care of. Now, many times husband and wives, they own everything joint, or they've done that, and they don't think that they need a will. But my philosophy is everyone needs a will, because you don't know, you might get an inheritance or something down the road that you didn't know about. So you want to make sure everything's covered. So everyone needs a will.
Yes.
It's not that expensive to to go and do some and get a will. This way you know that what you have is done exactly how you want it to be.
And that can also be right down to the preparation for funeral
Yes,
arrangements.
Exactly. I always recommend that clients look at that and do their burial instructions.
Yes.
That they're written down.
Yes.
Give the gift to your family.
It is.
Take care of your arrangements.
Yes.
Decide what it
Yes.
is what you want to do, and have your wishes taken, carried out.
Well, it takes,
You know.
it's stressful enough and mind-boggling enough when you lose a loved one. But then when you have to try to figure out what to do, that's even more
And
mind-boggling.
make those decisions, and it's a very,
Yes.
very traumatic, traumatic time.
Exactly.
Right,
So
right.
what you're trying to do is give this information out so that people can be a little bit more prepared. I know it's not a really glorious
And husband and wives and
subject.
partners should be talking. We
Yes,
should be
yes.
talking. I know people don't want to talk about this, but it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. We're all going to die. So we need to be having open and frank discussions. What do you want?
Yes.
Okay. What do you
Yes.
want? Do you want a celebration of life service or not? Do you, open casket or closed casket, cremation or not? There's just so many things and decisions, and so you should know what your partner wants. Okay, I knew what my husband wanted. Okay, we both believed in life is for the living, and he wanted a celebration of life, and that's what we did. I don't, me personally, I didn't, I thought, funeral was more of a sad
Yes,
thing, and it
exactly.
is sad.
It
Of
is.
course it's sad, but I wanted to celebrate his life.
Yes, and I think there's more people that are appreciating that, and it just makes it so much easier when you're listening to maybe their request of playing rock and roll and different passions that they had when they were alive, as opposed to the very, very sad music, because it taps into those emotional heartstrings
Right.
even more so. So that's really good, some good information. Time for a break already.
Okay.
And we still
All
have
right.
many
We've got a
questions.
lot more questions.
So stay with us. We'll be right back with Life and Law with Debora Diaz.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome into Life and Law with Debora Diaz. We're covering a lot of subject matter here today on the death of the spouse, your estate, your will, and so much more. In fact, we have a plethora of questions here to cover. So we'll jump right in, Debora. I just pick one here. We talked about needing a will, that is necessary. And what makes up my estate? Can you give us an idea on that?
Your estate is going to be whatever you own that you may have not already transferred in another way or devised.
Okay.
Title to someone else.
All right, such as property
So you may have bank accounts. If they are not payable on death to someone, maybe they're just left open or payable to the estate, then they're going to be part of the estate. If you own property, and say you and your spouse own property, and then it's your spouse died, you're left with it, your estate's going to be that unless you've transferred that somehow. So your estate is all of your belongings and possessions if you've not otherwise titled them in another way, meaning stock accounts, certificates of deposits, some IRAs. If you haven't named beneficiaries, then they're going to be part of your estate.
Good information. Okay, that's good. So those are the main things as far as naming someone as that beneficiary, which it obviously goes in the will. But what about the banks? Do they have that clause? I mean, it's been so long since we opened our accounts.
I know banks, and really, when I'm meeting with clients, I'm always counseling them to go to the bank, because you may have opened the account 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even last year, and you probably forgot what you signed at the time. You want to know, how did you what did you sign as to what happens to the account? And there's many different forms. You can put payable on death to. So it's a payable on death account. So that person doesn't have any rights over your account while they're living, but on your death, if there's $5,000 in there and it's a payable on death account, then that $5,000, if it says payable on death to John Doe gets it.
Gotcha.
Now, it could say payable on death to my estate.
And then
now,
it has
if
to
it's
go
to
through
your
that.
estate, then it has to go through the probate process.
Okay.
Okay, so it's really important to know how you've titled accounts and what you've done in the initial opening.
So title the accounts. We don't think of these things because, we're opening up accounts, we're getting married, and we're thinking we're going to live forever.
Accounts. We
right?
move, we forget about accounts. Banks merge and buy other banks, and everything's going on. Sometimes you forget there's about accounts. So
it's a good idea to really stay on task with it.
I review it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. Thank you. Let's see. What if I have a will, but I moved to Florida from another state? Is my will still valid?
Most likely, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it should still be valid.
Okay.
But you want to say yes, but again, Florida has some specific requirements as how a will should be executed.
Okay.
So it is a good idea. Think about it. It's your estate. It's a good idea to have a consultation with an attorney, bring your will, and have it looked at.
There you go.
And if it's valid, fine. Most likely it will be. Okay?
It's
But
always,
it's always good
better
to be-
safe
to-
than sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, good. I don't think we covered this one. Some of the named beneficiaries in my will have passed on. Is my will still valid?
Yes.
Yes.
The quick answer is
That's a
yes.
quickie.
The
Good.
beneficiaries, because many times there's named beneficiaries in a will, and the beneficiaries die, and maybe the person hasn't changed the will. The will is still valid. It's just what happens. What was the alternate planning to those beneficiaries? I'll give you a case in point. So say mom leaves $10,000 to her son, but her son died. Okay, so mom dies, son died, never change. Okay, so if son was married, then his beneficiary, depending on what his will says, unless there's some other directive in the will, then it's going to go however he named to who gets his estate.
I see.
Now maybe mom didn't want wife to get the $10,000.
Right.
Okay, so one of the things you do, and we're having these discussions with clients, is when you're naming beneficiaries, what do you want to happen if that beneficiary dies? Do you want the gift to go to whoever they've named, or do you want the gift to lapse? And lapse means it's gone.
And is there
No,
a
it
lapse
doesn't go.
time, or does it
No.
lapse immediately?
It lapses immediately.
Okay.
Means if the person is gone, the gift to that person is gone too.
So then does that go to probate? That
It's
10,000?
going to go, depending on what that person's
yeah.
will said.
I see.
It's just that you have made sure that your wishes are carried out
see.
regarding what happened to the specific, your beneficiary.
Right.
It's just really know your beneficiaries. This is a common scenario
Yeah.
in when you're leaving money to children, with divorces and things that happen. Is know what you want to happen. In the alternative, if your beneficiary dies, what do you want to happen? Maybe you're okay with that person's that you named as beneficiary receiving it, but maybe you're not. It's just to be, the whole idea is to be fully informed with information and know what it is that you're doing with your
Right.
assets.
Right. And because there's so many different cases of dementia and diseases out there where you just can't focus on that, or maybe and years have gone by, long time after the will was put into place and executed, that these are things that are kind of like oversights in a way.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be
Yeah.
oversights.
Yeah.
Definitely
So
people don't think about it. It's good to have a review, just like
Oh, yeah.
at the end of, the beginning of the year or the end of the year. Do it on December 31st or January 1st.
There you
or
go.
have a in place to review. I mean, there's
Yes.
a lot of things that should be done on a yearly basis, and one of them is just to look at your documents in place to make sure that they still carry out your wishes
very good. And know where they are.
and know where they are.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing too.
Know where they
Right.
are.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a power of attorney that named my son as the power of attorney. Do I still need a will? Did I say that?
Yes, yes, you do. Yes, many people are under the misconception that a power of attorney acts like a will or can do the things. Many times we get calls that say, my mother died, but I have POA and I'm going to do this, this, and this. Well, no, you're not, because what happens is when the person dies that gave you the power of attorney, the power of attorney is extinguished. It no longer exists. You have no power anymore. The power comes through, if there's a probate process, comes through the courts when someone's named as the executor or personal representative of the estate.
Very
Okay,
interesting.
and I know this is, a common thing. People say, I have a POA and I can do this and I can do that. They have no power if the person that gave it to them died.
Oh, Okay. That's some good information. Goodness. So, okay, let's get the best definition of probate. What is probate?
Excuse me. Probate is the court process by which your wishes are carried out from your will. So you've named a will, you've executed a will, your will is filed with the court, a petition for administration is filed with the court to open up this probate process, and then the executor, its personal representative is the term in Florida, was named, and that's the person that is going to carry out what you said you wanted in the will, okay? Take an inventory of your estate, pay the bills, do all the things necessary with an estate, and they're issued what's called letters of administration by the court, which gives them the authority. So let's say someone was left $5,000, and the $5,000 is going through probate to the estate. The bank's not going to do anything with that $5,000 until they see the letters of administration show to them that gives the personal representative authority. Then they will transfer the money to the probate estate account of that person's estate.
Okay.
But before that, they can't do anything without authority.
Okay. So basically, if everything is in place, the will and everything is the perfect scenario, right? What just time frame? Because I haven't really dealt with this in a long time down here in Florida, and I know that's
Really,
a little. I'm not holding you to anything. I would
really
never do that.
The
case.
It depends on the size of the estate. And the bills that have to be taken care of. You have to, take care of creditors.
Sure.
So it really is a process that can take up to, you hope it's going to be done in less than a year, let's say. But
I see. But that makes
yeah.
sense. All right. Well, my goodness, we're going through here. I still don't think we're going to be able to get all the questions in, but we thank you for sending them to Debora and everything. We're going to take a brief little time out. When we come back, we're going to try to get to some more of them, and you're always welcome to call or email Debora right here on the show. And if we miss them for this show, we'll pick up with them next week.
Show.
All right. We'll be right back.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 50,000 successful procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back into Life and Law with Debora Diaz. I'm Barbara Marvel. Thanks for joining us. I just want to make sure that you have her website, DeboraDiazLaw.com. We were just talking during the break that you do some really nice articles in there that are very, very informative. So check that out.
A lot more information on my website.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is a little shift because we still have so many questions here that we'll be covering next week. So this will be continued. But in the meantime, you happen to have a list of tips that you want to share.
Yeah, I like to close out and say some like my top 10 or 12 or so estate planning tips.
Okay.
And we touched upon it a little bit. One of the first things is that everyone needs a will. So I'm just going to repeat that again. Even if you think you don't, you do.
Okay.
So everyone needs a will. So
I agree.
Be looking at that, be talking about that. That's number one. Number two is to choose your personal representative wisely. That is, in personal representative, other states use executor. Florida uses PR, personal representative. Again, that is somebody that's going to deal with the court process and handle your estate, do an inventory, and carry out your wishes.
Okay.
So you want that person, again, to be someone that you know is going to carry out your wishes and be trustworthy and dependable and wants to do it. Okay, because it can be a lot of work depending on the size of the estate, but and it doesn't have to be your oldest child. Doesn't have to be your youngest child. It could be someone. In Florida, we have some specific requirements. They have to be, if it's not a relative, it has to be a resident. The person has to be a resident of Florida, and it can't be a felon and have some other things in their background.
Right.
But you want somebody that you can trust. So I always say, choose your personal representative wisely.
Yes, yes,
Okay?
for
Because
starters,
as with
for sure.
everything, yes.
Okay.
Another thing, we're going to talk about trust next week, so I'm going to leave that subject. We're going to go into the some differences and things and trust and how it's different than probate. So I won't cover that tip. One of the things I talk to my clients is consider passing on assets before you die. Sometimes people are, first of all, you want to know if the people that you're going to give this stuff to, they want it. Okay, I'm finding more and more as I talk to clients that my clients' children don't want their stuff. Okay?
You know what? I can't even comment, but I hear
they don't want the good dishes.
No.
They don't. I mean, and I know it's really hurtful, and people think that they've had it. But we're also going into this realm where people are going into smaller and smaller and tiny houses and tiny apartments. And so I'm not making light of the subject. What I'm saying is that have some discussions. Your children might not want your 200-piece china collection.
You know what? I'm still hauling my grandma's china around, I swear.
Yeah,
and I can't get, but it's time.
I know that, but there is something
Some
to
of
be
those
said
things
about heirlooms
yes,
and
I
things that you
know.
want preserved. So you should have that. And maybe who you think wanted it doesn't want it, but someone else does in your family. So, So I have that discussion. And sometimes isn't it joyful to see something that you wanted to give someone and you give it to them while you're alive?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I've done that.
Yeah.
My suggestion is start getting rid of your stuff now. right now. I actually started doing that.
And that's
just stuff.
it's all personal
just stuff.
preference. It's just remember it is. And so sometimes you might
Right.
want to, that's why I say, so consider
Yeah.
passing on things while you're alive.
Right.
Is one of my tips. Another thing is evaluate your estate after your spouse dies, because it's going to be different. What happened? What happened with assets? And and who's going to be your beneficiary now? So you're looking at a change. So it's a good idea to be re-looking, reevaluating estate plans after the death of a partner. So, you want to look at life insurance. You want to look at the bank accounts, retirement accounts, and everything out there, the house, and then deciding from there what your estate plan is. So.
Good information.
I touched upon it a little bit. You can name the beneficiaries to some of your accounts. One of the common thing is that people think that a will supersede any named beneficiary on other accounts, and that absolutely does not happen. Sometimes I'll say to somebody, "And what have you done with your bank account?" And they'll say, "Well, my bank account says this, but I'm going to put in my will that I'm going to do this." Well, a will does not supersede any documents that you have said to your insurance company or to the bank. So if at your bank you said $5,000 goes to my daughter Jane Doe, and in your will you put that same $5,000 goes to my son, the bank's documents is what rules.
Oh.
A will does not supersede when you've already named a beneficiary on your accounts.
Okay.
And many people they forget, or they just don't understand this. And so you want to understand that how you title your accounts, how you name those beneficiaries is what happens.
So that goes back to one of our other
supersede.
segments that we were talking about. So make sure you read those documents.
That's
Go
why,
back
again,
and review them.
Evaluate your documents and know how you've titled accounts and who you've named as beneficiary. On insurance too. Many times we'll say insurance proceeds. It's important to know what you have. One of my other estate tips is to maintain a joint account with your spouse. I know many people in this financial and finances are such a personal thing, and they have, they may have had separate accounts. But I think it's a good idea to have a joint account too, because when a spouse can die, if that spouse was the one that had the majority of the money, if the surviving spouse doesn't have access to it, there can be issues.
Oh my goodness!
Okay?
And how do
there can be issues
Yes.
of, especially when you have things of the, the automatic payments that come out of accounts.
Sure.
So it really is. And related to that, it's to know what accounts are out there. Really, it's to know the accounts, know what you have. This is a biggie. Either know the passwords to the financial accounts where most everything is online now, or have a system in place that you will have access to the passwords, because again, you can be shut out of all the day-to-day finances. Okay, if it's not your account, if you don't have access to the passwords, you will not get them. Okay, the bank, if you are not titled on that account, you will not have access.
Yeah.
So this should be full and frank discussion.
Yes.
Again, it's about survival. These are hard. I know we're talking about hard questions and hard subjects, but I have said this in my years of practice. I have seen, and many times it's the woman, I have seen women left behind devastated with no access to the financial accounts. Until a probate gets going, and until they can get some access through the courts. So it can be devastating. So not only is the spouse dealing with the loss of the spouse, they're dealing with, they don't have any money.
Exactly. And how do they live?
Okay, that all the utilities aren't being taken care of, maybe the house mortgage. So all of that stuff that we're taking for granted needs to be talked about.
Right. But if they're on the account, in a joint account, let's say they don't have the password.
They should have, at
But
least
they can
then they'll have access.
Yeah,
At least they'll have
exactly,
access.
exactly.
So, and there's safe keepers, there's password keepers, there's ways to do this about
Safely.
knowing the,
Sure.
because now everything, you have brokerage accounts, you have retirement accounts, the bank accounts. So all those are having passwords, and so you need access. And this is related to this. What I wanted to say is, it's social media. The same thing. Know the passwords. Most there's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, Snapchat. I don't know how many people. So many out there. Okay. Now, some of these accounts have value. Okay. If a Twitter, somebody has 5,000, 10,000 followers on Twitter, that account could have a financial value.
Exactly.
So
yes.
It's knowing the accounts, knowing the passwords to social media. What do you want? What does your husband or spouse that died, what are you going to do with their Facebook page? It's really, really traumatic when you see someone posting to someone's page that died.
Yes.
And there's
yes.
things they have. Facebook has things in place. Yahoo, Google, they have things in place where you can do some estate planning with your account as to administrator that can be named to take care
That's
of
right.
the accounts.
That's
and you
right.
want to have that.
Yes.
It really is
Yes.
devastating to see posts being made to someone's page that's died. And Facebook allows some memorial pages and some different. So it's knowing this. Since we're talking, the social media is
Sure.
so prevalent. It's
Sure.
knowing about the accounts and what should happen.
And can be integrated with business. So
Yes,
if a husband and wife
especially
has a
if it's
business that
business.
relies on social media,
It could be devastating
Oh,
to
my
the
goodness,
business. It could
absolutely.
be devastating
Thank
to the
you so much
business.
for mentioning
So that
that.
should be part of the overall estate and business succession planning when
Yes,
you're
yes.
thinking about this. Again, I know people don't want to think about this, but it happens.
You really need to. Well,
Yeah.
we have just 1 minute remaining. Gosh, Debora, I have learned so much in the last 4 weeks.
Good.
Co-hosting the show with you that, my mind is like really spinning, but this is really good, easy information to understand. So
That's what we're trying to do here.
this show today is going to be continued because there is so much subject matter here, and we'll probably have more questions coming in to add to the ones that we haven't been able to cover today. But not to fear, we will cover them.
We'll be back.
Make sure you tune in next week. Write Debora. Write me if you want. We're both on Facebook.
And we'll
Feel
try
free
to get to all the questions.
Yeah, we really will. This is so informative. Thank you so much, Debora.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being out
there. Thank you
there.
for watching.
We'll see you next week.